Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited today to chat with Kid Carson. He was a radio show host out of Vancouver that was let go of his job for speaking out around the protests. He is an inspiration to all of us in mainstream media, or who have, who have been cut from mainstream media. Let me see here. I'm just going to invite an inspiration to Canadians in general. And Kid, hello.
Well, that was fast.
That was.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
You sound great. You sound awesome.
I'm never quite sure with using the Bluetooth whether my voice is like coming through here or if it's coming through here. I'm not an IG Live expert.
I know, and sometimes I've had people wear those and then all of a sudden it's cutting in and out, but no, you sound great.
Okay, let me know if it is weird and I'll take it out.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, I'm excited for this conversation. I've been listening to some of the other interviews you've done, and so I believe the majority of people popping on here know your story. However, why don't you give a quick, just little summary of what took place in the last few months for you?
Okay, well, nice to meet you. Thanks
Nice to
for
meet you.
inviting me on your live. For any of my Instagram followers who are getting the notification and now jumping in to watch this, I apologize because you're probably so sick of hearing me talk about myself. They're like, oh my God, I know I am. But it's funny, in my years in radio, I was always the interviewer interviewing people, and then in my show would share personal things about the things that I'm going through that I felt were relatable to my audience. But it is weird to have been for the last few months being interviewed so many times and talking about myself so much. So I always feel I'm never quite comfortable talking about myself.
I
But
totally understand.
yeah,
As someone who's on that side too, it is weird when someone asks
yeah.
you. Yeah.
So I'll do my best. If it gets boring, just start to flag me like this. Um, because there's so much detail, so much nuance into what happened, and sometimes you tell the story so many times you forget or you jump over parts. But basically, for people who don't know me, I was a radio personality for many years in Canada, and I worked in a few different cities, like Toronto and Barrie, and most recently in Vancouver. And I never thought I would be a morning radio host, but my career took me there, and I was like a fish out of water. I normally DJs talk for like 15, 20 seconds at a time, and then suddenly got this job where they want me to talk for like 5 minutes at a time, and it was just this terrifying but exciting experience. And I was really lucky. My career was just was awesome. I built a career on basically being curious about all sorts of things. I loved psychology. I loved relationships. I was single at the time in the beginning of my career, so I was able to talk a lot about my dating life and all the things that a lot of people in radio were kind of shied away from talking about. I was always keen to share all my personal stuff with everybody, and that mixed with being curious really propelled my career to great heights. And I was really lucky, or get some great radio stations. Most famously, the Beat 94.5 in Vancouver, which was just a powerhouse for a long time. We had an incredible 10-year run. And so what happened for me the last few months is, as things in the world started getting weird, um, I felt this really weird resistance to speaking about this stuff. Like the masks, I would make jokes about how, oh, I hate wearing these dumb masks. It's awful. But I guess in the beginning, but I guess we got to do it to keep each other all safe. Even saying something like that, even hinting at that you didn't like the mask. Like, I wasn't allowed to say that I didn't like wearing a mask. And I was like, well, who likes it? Like, we're not supposed to like enjoy it. Like, oh, this is so much fun. Or it's supposed to be a pain in the ass. It's supposed to be a thing that we do to keep people safe. Now, I don't agree with that now, but in the early days, that was, kind of the thing we were all saying. So it was just weird to not be able to even mention the masks. And this is at my most recent radio station. And, as all these things started to unravel, and there were these heavy-handed narratives from the government, there was just such a strong push to just really parrot what the government was saying. And for people that were waking up, it seemed so ludicrous what was
Yeah.
happening. So it was so nutty to, like, now be in this position where you're going in every morning and you're supposed to talk about things that connect with your audience, and you're building a rapport with new listeners every day, and you're supposed to speak freely about what's on your mind. We live in this world where we're supposed to be like, we're praised for being authentic and being real and being especially vulnerable. Vulnerability has been such a huge conversation these last few years. And suddenly I can't be any of these things. And it just turned my job into like a nightmarish experience, which is really hard when I'm the breadwinner of the family. I've got 3 kids. 2 of them are like really young. So it really was extremely stressful. My radio partner, my co-host, he tapped out. He couldn't do it anymore. He just had he was burnt out, and he quit, basically quit the show. And he was also a long time one of my closest friends. So now I'm left on the air by myself, going in there. My producer is totally hook, line, and sinker into the narrative. My boss is all into the narrative. Anytime I skew off the narrative, I'm reprimanded. I did a segment on digital IDs, and this is at the time where we're all showing QR codes. Well, I wasn't, but we're all showing QR codes to get into restaurants. And I thought, wow, this is a thing that we're all experiencing, whether you have a QR code or you're not. This is a massive thing. It's globally. And so I did a segment on, wow, guys, like maybe this technology isn't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe it's not just a convenient way to carry your code. They can connect this to other things. They can connect this to your money, your wallet. And maybe down the road, they can connect this to a social credit score system like they've already done in China. So me saying that, I was pulled into a meeting with all the head executives in Toronto over Zoom. And it was basically like, you could just feel it, like this was going to be the end for me. They told me to keep my opinions on the air based in reality. They made me feel like a crazy person, for real. It was awful. And so at that point I had to sort of beg for forgiveness, put my tail between my legs. And I'm like, shit, I have kids. I am not ready to retire. I'm a young guy. I live in one of the most expensive cities in the world. This is not good. So I had to promise that I wouldn't say anything. And I didn't even bring up masks and I didn't even go hardcore. I was being very tame. I didn't bring up vaccines. I knew there were certain things that would polarize the audience so much that would hurt my ratings. So I knew there was a line, but I had to promise to not mention anything, even on Instagram. And because it was many months of my boss calling me, sometimes late at night, going, I saw what you posted on Instagram. You need to delete it. Delete it. And I'm like, whoa, dude, I just forwarded like a freedom rally in Italy where people are going, no, no, no. And I was being told to take that stuff down. So it was very emotional. It was burning me out. Then Ottawa happened. Nicole. I don't know if you were like me, but I watched so many of those videos that people were posting, and there were some talented videographers out there and editors who put the music and the slow motion Canadian flag, we will not comply. And you're like, ooh, and you're weeping watching this stuff. Like, oh my God, I'm not alone.
I was on the ground, just so you know.
Oh, you were on the ground? Oh, amazing. Good for you.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, watching it live through people like you who were streaming it, it was finally you just felt like, oh my God, because I felt really isolated and really alone at that point. Everyone around me thinks I'm a nut job, except for my wife. Thank God we're on the same page with this. But even some of my closest friends were going like, so that became really exhausting. But when you saw the Ottawa thing breaking, it was like, yes, you were swallowed up with so much emotion that it was hard not to weep up, to go, oh my God, us tame Canadians who are always afraid to rock the boat, and they're always afraid to like, oh, well, we're kind of brainwashed, and we see someone protesting, we go, ooh, what are they doing? Like, ooh, I don't want to stay away from that, and to feel like, wow, Canadians are actually standing up was such a magical moment. And because we're spoiled rotten. We've never really had to fight for anything. We have, but it was so long ago we forget, and we don't have a culture around celebrating our freedom like they do in the US, where they're constantly reminding themselves that, hey, we got to hang on to this because we fought for it. And that's built into their culture. Other countries, they have it built into, if you go to Eastern Europe, they have their songs and their dances. Like it's something you learn about when you're a kid, about freedom, and because it's so recent for them. Some of their grandparents like actually fought in wars. There's not this 100 years ago that this thing happened. It's like recent. We don't have that in Canada really, which sucks for the people in Canada, because we are fighting in wars, and there's a lot of veterans here who are shaking their heads going, but we don't celebrate it like other countries do. So we tend to be spoiled. And so here we are. Now we're going to Ottawa and we're doing this thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. And then you're watching it on the news and on Instagram. And
Yep.
like, well,
Yep.
it's really weird, man. This is not matching up. Not matching up. And so that was kind of the breaking point for me when I had already promised I wasn't going to talk about it on the air. I'm watching this thing and I'm going, oh my God, like I'm on the wrong side of history here. And because I'd been so outspoken before, I'm getting messages from listeners on Instagram and they're going, dude, you're one of us. You're awake. I know you're awake. Why aren't you saying anything? And then you start to feel like a sellout or a phony. And long story short, it all came to a boiling point where one morning I just blurted everything out about, guys, if you think this is this convoy is a racist movement, you're like, you've been tricked. You're being brainwashed. Like you're watching it's literally state-run media that we point the finger at in other countries, but you're like, the CBC took 1.4 or something billion dollars from liberals last year or the year before, whatever year. And I'm going, guys, let's wake up here. And that ended up being my last day on radio. And so, yeah, I'll take a breath now and let you ask whatever you want to ask.
No,
I tend to
so
ramble.
beautiful.
I'm good at rambling.
And I think for so many of us, because when I saw the videos of them going across Canada, I was like, I need to go there. I need to cover this. I need to be on the ground. So me and my roommate at the time drove in 2.5 days from Alberta to Ottawa.
Wow.
To be there.
You were not going the speed limit, Nicole.
We only slept 3 hours a night.
Okay.
And we were taking trades. So we were going a little bit over. And you're from that area. You're from Toronto. So it goes down to like 90. And it was like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
I know that pull, that heart pull of, oh, I have to say something now. Oh, it's time to do something now. And I was working for The Pulse, which is an independent media company. So I had already been speaking out. But it was amazing. And to see the different perspectives being shown on mainstream media versus what I saw with my own eyes / what everyone was seeing there was a wake-up call for many. Now, I want to rewind a little bit because I think we need to bring attention to your wife for a second. Because there's other people who started speaking out that did not have the support of their family. I'm just curious, what was that conversation like with your wife around making this decision to speak out? And I'm just curious because there's other people who feel that, and it's scary, right?
Yeah, I'm really lucky that we're on the same page. And my wife and I have both been awake in different areas. So and I think this is quite common in a lot of, I'm speaking very generally, but in a lot of marriages, it seems to be that the women take the lead in the health of the family, and the men in sort of like a different type of protection. So, the guys tend to, not always like this, but tend to go down, if you're awake, more the other conspiracies, like eventually they're going to come for us and, physically, and the women are like, they're poisoning us with all these things. This is what I found. And this is the case in our marriage. And so my wife had woken up to other aspects of big pharma a few years before. In BC, I'm not sure if this was in Alberta or other parts of Canada, but there was a big, the measles vaccine was really being pushed, and it was going to have weird technology in it, and they were thinking of mandating it for all kids in schools, and that put it on our radar, like, ugh, okay. So we did deep dives, my wife, deep dives into researching that. So there was already a level of understanding about some of these things. And so when this situation came up, it was like, we were sort
I've
of
seen this.
onto it. Yeah. The conversation that we had was, like she knew that I was going to say that morning. I knew for, a little while a few days, I should say a few days, that I was going to do something. Looking back, I think I would have been more prepared. I think that we do get really emotional in these situations. We live in very passionate times. I could have been better prepared when I did that. For example, with I have an app and a platform now and a community that I've been building, and I should have had that ready to go right away. That was my lack of business sense, and acting passionately. So I won't make that mistake again, because I was like, okay, I'm going to say this thing. We'll start a podcast. Maybe people will join me and bring me over. And, I'm miserable at this radio station anyways. It's awful. Radio as a whole is it's just dying. People aren't really listening to radio anymore. So am I going to reinvent myself when I'm 50, or am I going to reinvent myself when I'm 40? Okay, well, we're not totally ready, but we might as well go for it now. So it was like, hey, I'm going to say this thing. It could have bad consequences. I had been playing around with podcasting a little bit, just posting like clips from my radio show. So I kind of knew how it worked a little bit, enough to set up a little bit of a subscription, like, pay a few bucks a month and you can, but that's as far as I gotten. So, yeah, the conversation she was very like cool with everything. So, if that answers your question, yeah, it's different. I feel bad for people that are at odds with their partners. Because we've all heard horror stories like that, ending marriages, relationships, the battle with the kids and the whole thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring attention because that's not probably easy for your wife either, but there's something more important going on now. And it's amazing that you guys are on the same page with that. Now,
it's not easy to suddenly be hanging in the wind. It's not easy to not have a steady job. It's not easy it's literally a leap of faith, which is it's scary. It's still scary. I'm still getting the word out there about my app, Kid Carson in the App Store. It's you just hope people will support you. I'm passionate about wanting to build community because I was so isolated for so long. I bump into people, get DMs from people constantly over the last couple of years that I heard you say that thing on the air. I heard that little joke you made. I noticed you said plandemic instead of pandemic, and I caught that. It was like your little wink to me that you're like awake, like I am, but I'm so isolated. I'm so alone. My family won't talk to me. My God, the stories are just awful. I even have some of those stories in my family with different cousins and people not talking, and it's awful. So I really wanted to build a place where, hey, if you're lonely, like I don't know where you live, you can live out in the sticks, or you can be one of the most popular people in your community, but if you're the only awake one, you can feel like the most alone person in the world. So I'm really passionate about building a place where people can just log on, ask questions, post things. They don't have to worry about their coworkers seeing them on Instagram. Oh, you liked that thing. Like people are getting that. Like my coworker saw that I liked a Freedom post and then went and ratted me out to my boss. And now I'm like the crazy person at my office. I've heard it all. So, and then there's Bill C-11, the threat of that in more censorship. The censorship is already so bad now without Bill C-11 that it's if you really knew, like I have, even before I was getting hardcore, I have people trying to follow me and a weak warning comes up and says, are you sure you want to follow this person? They are known to be a dangerous criminal mastermind or whatever it is.
Yeah, people can't even find me on Facebook at all.
It's great. You have to type my full name down to the last letter in order for it to pop up. And so this community I've got now is there's none of that. It's censorship free. People can feel safe. They can ask dumb questions. I love the people that are just waking up and they want to sort of like be around people and read. And so anyway, sorry, I got on a tangent there, promoting myself, but
Let's go into this though, because I was gonna do this later, but let's do it now because I joined the community. I was looking around. There's such amazing stuff there, but I want to call out something that you started doing, which was around the gratitudes. Every day, post gratitudes, and what comes through when I'm looking at what you're creating is you have researched psychology, you've researched self-development stuff, and how do you think that is going to help people now, especially in your community?
Um, I'm a huge psychology nerd. Back in the day, I started reading like Malcolm Gladwell books, and my mind was blown. I went from reading like rock star documentaries, like The Dirt, to like discovering, oh, I'll try this Malcolm Gladwell book, and ended up being able to interview Malcolm Gladwell one time, and I was like a fanboy. I was so nervous and shaky. I thought he was so cool. But I love human psychology, which started, funny enough, in my job in radio, where I would be doing like requests at nighttime before I did a morning show. And you would answer, our policy was on my show, answer every single phone call. Some DJ just sit there and they don't answer the phone, and no one knows better. But I would answer every single phone call. Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? And I'd probably talk to at least a few hundred people a night in like a 3 or 4 hour show. And you would just get a sense of, there were just certain patterns of how people would behave within like the first 2 words of what someone would say. I would be able to almost, Malcolm Gladwell had in his book called Blink, he had a term for it. It escapes me now, but it was a way that you could almost fill in the blanks of what kind of person this was. And it was pretty accurate, actually, like based on your subconscious mind and your gut instincts, and you'd see patterns. So that got me really fascinated with psychology, and I started reading a bunch of books. So you're right. Having that passion has really made me hyper aware of the brainwashing that's going on. And there are people who can speak about it much more intelligently than I can. I'm still just a jack of all trades, sort of dumb radio DJ guy, but there are like really great relationship experts and psychologists that are speaking out against this stuff. And I'm such a fanboy of those people. But the reason why I think it's important is because I don't want to just create an app where people are just posting doom and gloom and we're all spinning out of control and we're scared, and because it's a real easy place to go. It's so dark. What's happening is dark. And at the highest levels, call me crazy, but like satanic, evil shit is happening. Gross, evil shit. And so much bigger than we know. So I want to be in a place where we can build a strong mindset, where we can be informed, but not terrified. Like on my logo, I have love over fear. There are only 2 emotions. Of the hundreds of emotions that we can experience, they really break under 2 categories. It's love or fear. And that's it. And we are spiritual, vibrational beings having a human experience. Everything in the world, this clipboard in front of me, it's vibrating molecules. I mean, not to get all woo-woo, but like we are vibrating. When you walk in a room, you can sense, ooh, is something weird here? Did something happen? I'm very like sensitive to that type of stuff. You've got great energy, by the way, Nicole.
Thank you. I feel it. I'm like, oh, I'm loving this. Yeah.
So I take that in consideration with the app. And when I launched it, it was just about getting people in. And I launched it with not having it all figured out. It was like, boom, let's just get it in the app store. Let's launch it, get people in there. And now as I'm there, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure it stays light. I want to keep people in the light. We want to feel good. We want to have solutions. We want to feel like we're empowered. We want to have empowering thoughts. We don't want to be stuck in this victim mentality. So although there's a lot of uncensored truth in there, there's also ways that we can be like, hey, let's keep our vibration in love. Let's be positive. I'm trying to get some guests in that can make us feel like, hey, we got it still control. Even as the world seemingly is falling apart, we don't have to get in that trap of having our, oh my God, what am I going to do kind of thing. So
yeah,
that's why I especially love the gratitude thing.
The gratitude thing's amazing. And the more I look into it, this is what I'm kind of working on. Because somewhat like you, after you do enough interviews in media, you start to see storyline narrative patterns with people. And then for me, I started to recognize, oh, these aren't who these people are. These are just narratives almost that they they take on, or personality traits that they take on. Does that, and so I started to see how the result of their story was so much based on these beliefs, right? Limiting beliefs,
Right.
or non-limiting beliefs. That said, I see people really addicted to fear. And I think that that's the baseline that has to do with our nervous system. So how do we not go black pilled? Because it is dark. When you go high enough up and you see when you have a knowing in your body of what's taking place, it can feel so overwhelming. And some of these alternative communities, I think they're really feeding off of that fear and instilling that even more as well. So looking through your app, I can honestly say there's a lightness, there's a hopefulness, there's connection, and it is solution based. It's not just stroking rightness. Do you know what I
mean? Thank you for saying that. We're just getting started. I mean, it's been out for 4 weeks. It's brand new. So I'm still implementing things like that to keep it light, to keep it, people who can give us solutions, make us feel empowered. But it's interesting that, a lot of that, did a great podcast. I just released it, I think yesterday, with a guy named Corey George, one of my favorites to date. It is so good. It's on Spotify, all the platforms, or you can find it in my app. But he is just sort of like, he was into the activism, sucked right in, we're doing all this, and then suddenly he had this epiphany and sort of rose above it, and he talks about it, and I can't even do it justice, but something to the effect of like, it's almost like the part of the plan is to suck us in, so it's almost like you have to step out of getting sucked in and stop focusing on, he did a great analogy actually. He goes, okay, let's say we're in a sports team, and like, I'm, it's my team, and we've correctly pointed out the enemies. So we got Justin Trudeau, Bill Gates, WEF, Schwab, all those guys. We know who they are, but we're so focused on them. If you want to win the game, you got to turn around. And he's like, I got a whole team behind me. I'm focusing on them. But is that how you win a game? Do you win a game by focusing on the enemy, or do you win a game by focusing on your own team and turning around and going, okay, guys, our team, what are we going to do? Are we going to just spend all of our energy being sucked into, Justin Trudeau? And believe me, I love doing that. I'll never be able to fully give that up. I like Justin Trudeau memes and the whole thing. I love it. But I think there's something to that where, okay, let's put, this much energy into that, but also let's shift a lot more of our energy onto, okay, what can I do in my own body? What can I do in my own house? What can I do with my family? What can I do with my goals? And instead of, focusing all my energy and trying to defeat someone else, maybe I shift a little more of that energy onto myself and how I can personally win, and that's a big thing that George said in that interview. And it's really made me think a lot of new ways. And I think he has had a lot of resistance from the circle that he had, a community he had built up of freedom fighters, because they don't want to hear that. They want to protest and be angry. And yeah, there's a place for that. We got to make ourselves be heard, but we also have to take extreme hyper responsibility for ourselves. And that's really hard to do just in regular life, let alone during a pandemic.
And I see this, what you're tapping into here is, it's just a different form of victimhood. If we're a victim to Bill Gates or the WEF, it's just that different kind of victimhood. Now, I have a feeling you've ventured into like lots of other kinds of spiritual communities, and sometimes they go for that good vibe, and it's like, I don't want to even recognize that there's deception going on. Like, good vibes only, feel good all the time. Where's that balance? How do we stay informed but not get pulled into being black-pilled, essentially?
We're losing the connection a little bit.
Oh.
You're back, I think.
Yeah.
Am I frozen?
You're good now. You're good now. I asked this question. I'm like, okay, how do people not be black-pilled? How do they? And it's like frozen.
There's something to that, I swear.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think it's, I think that we have to get off autopilot. just in life in general. I worked with a personal coach a couple years ago, and I learned a lot from that experience. One of the big ones was to get off autopilot. Just in general, we were on autopilot almost all day, and that's why our lives seem to be going so fast, and the weeks, months, and years fly by because we really do the exact same thing every day. And my point is, I'm working towards how we consume our information too, habitually scrolling, you know. But even in life, it's funny how your your memory, your brain remembers things that are different. They're new experiences, and that's how you create time. Like if you go on vacation somewhere you've never been before, like you can go away for a long weekend to somewhere you've never been, and it's maybe 3 days away. You go for a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever. You go away to somewhere you've never been. You're making so many new memories. Or what's that cool new restaurant? Or let's go for a walk here. Or all these new things. You come home after 3 days, and you feel so refreshed as if you've been away on like a week-long or a 2-week trip. At least I do. If you go away to, and this happened to me one time when I went to a resort in Hawaii years ago. It was the Disney one there. And the first time we went there, Disney's another whole topic. I know.
Yes.
Save that for another.
Everyone's going to be typing Kid Carson. You went Disney.
You went to a Disney resort? Forgive me.
Calm down.
But we went to this, the one in Hawaii, the one in, I think it's Maui. It was like the greatest. Oh my God. We went there for 10 days. This a few years ago. It was so good. So good. And we went, and it felt like we were there forever. And then we went back the next day. We're like, we got to go back to the same place. Like the next time we went on a trip, like a year or two later, we got to go back to the same place. We went in, and that 10 days felt like a long weekend. It was such a waste of money. The time flew. And what I learned from my personal coach at the time, he's like, because you went and did the same things that you did before, you didn't make any, your brain didn't have to save any new memories. It already knew when you showed up on day one. Oh yeah. The best place to get like a cold margarita in the middle of the day is that little bar around over there, or the best pool is here. Like, oh, this is the guy you asked for to rent the chairs for the beach. Like we knew all these things. And he's like, the human mind creates time when you are making memories. So the moral of the story is get off autopilot. Little things like we all usually drive the exact same way to work every single day. In fact, half the time, this has ever happened to you, you get to where you're going, you don't even remember driving or getting there. You literally go on autopilot, and your subconscious takes over, and you're thinking about the world, and you're driving, and then you're just there. And you're like, oh my God, where did that like 20-minute or half an hour drive go? He's like, switch it up. Drive a different route, even if it takes you 5 minutes longer. Just create action, some memories in your brain, create life, get off autopilot, So I try to do that. It seems silly, but like if I'm going to walk somewhere I always walk to, I'll go on the other side of the street and walk on the other sidewalk just to experience something different. And it sounds so dumb, Nicole. I know this, but it works. It actually works. So when we are in autopilot, it's how our brains are wired. It's how we operate. So when we are sitting there automatically allowing news and information to be spoon-fed to us, and scrolling and reading the memes or whatever, however we do, it's so easy to get sucked into the darkness. And it's happened to me many times because we are living through the darkest times that ever, maybe not ever, I don't know, but it's dark. It's not cool. So I think that we just have to be just cognitive, and purposeful on what we're doing. Like just, okay, I'm doing this. And if I'm going to sit down and I'm going to indulge in the gram, do it. I love it. But I'll set like a timer and go, okay, I'm going to set a timer. I'm going to go hard into the gram for, 15 minutes. And then I'm going to go on my app and I'm going to do my little gratitude thing. And then I'm going to, you just have to be a little more purposeful. So I don't know what the balance is. I get out of balance all the time. And some people naturally will get into like the dark. Some people will bounce into like the la, 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 la. I don't want to know anything bad. Everything's fine. It's good. It's different for everyone. So I don't know. That doesn't really give an answer. I'm certainly not an expert on how we stay balanced. But that's just kind of what I do to sort of, my message is get up autopilot at least and give yourself a hope in hell.
I think that's great advice. It's just, again, it sounds simple, but it's just become aware. Just become aware. Like, what are you leaning towards? If you're someone who's always scrolling, try something else. If you're leaning
Mm-hmm.
towards the world's going to end, there's no hope, try something else. Or if you're
Mm-hmm.
not looking at anything and you don't want to see anything, maybe venture
Mm-hmm.
in and your community
Mm-hmm.
honestly is a great place for people to explore that because you have access to
Mm-hmm.
both there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's somebody asked, it's well, I'll have it tagged in this post as well, but it's the Kid Carson community, correct?
Yeah. So if you just type in Kid Carson, KidCarson, I guess you can see it probably here. It's there. Another thing I wanted to add to that real quick, and it was a nice reminder for me because I do love conspiracy podcasts. I've got a couple of guys that I listen to that I just love. It's like my little, my own little TMZ. I was never into like celebrity culture, but I was always into like, oh, a good conspiracy, something about the ancient occult or hidden knowledge or something. But again, this great interview I did with a guy, my last podcast with Corey George, and he talked about just who you listen to, who you listening to. He does a training program for salespeople. He has a whole thing that he does, and he pulls them off mainstream news. He pulls them off, he says you have to just plug into guys like his mentor, Grant Cardone, or, these people who are entrepreneurs and just thinking big. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, like just listening to people talk about big ideas and how to, because you steal little ideas about your own stuff. Maybe you run a blog, but you're listening to like this great entrepreneur and just steal an idea. Oh yeah, I could do that. Like not all of us are going to be big entrepreneurs, but maybe we got a side hustle or just we want to change the way that we think. It's good to have people in your head that are opening up to a new mindset. Getting yourself in a good place. It's just so easy to constantly be afraid all the time. So I love my conspiracies. I'll never give them up. Please God, don't let me give up my conspiracies. But I also now really am reminding myself. I used to do it a lot more, but now Corey yesterday reminded me, like, dude. So I shuffled up my podcast playlist. I wrote down a couple people. I'm at the gym working out. I'm listening to people now talk about entrepreneurship and thinking big and setting goals that are 10 times bigger than what you think you can do. And so that's something new I'm trying out. So if I'm giving anyone else some ideas, just be aware of being out of what was the word we were just talking about? Being out of autopilot and paying attention to who you're listening to.
Yeah, and then it sounds like what you're saying is expand who you're listening to. Test other people.
Mm-hmm.
Go for
Mm-hmm.
other things.
Yeah.
Okay, so as someone, you've worked in media, in radio for 20 years, I believe? 2 decades? That's a long time.
I know, it's a long time.
That's a long
Thanks
time.
for doubling down on that comment. 20 years? That's a long time.
20? Wow, that's like there are people who are alive that are not that old. Anyway,
it's funny. I know I got in. I really started in radio young. I started doing my first radio show when I was like 20, or like morning show when I was 20. And so I had people come up to me sometimes at a restaurant or whatever who were like, "Oh my God, my mom used to drive me to like grade 1, and we would listen to your morning show on the beat, you and Mira." And now they're like, they're talking to me at a bar or something. I'm like, "Oh my God." That's crazy.
I love it. I love that so much. And for those who are tuning in who don't know my background, who are your fans, I've worked in media for about a decade. And so I'm curious your thoughts, because I took radio television school. I have lots of friends like you who are in mainstream media. And so throughout this, it's been like this demonization of people in mainstream media. And I'm like, I know these people. I love these people. I've taught these people. So what do you think are some things people need to know who are in maybe the alternative crowd about mainstream media that they might not get if they haven't had the experience that you and I have had? And you've had double the experience I've had. I'm just gonna.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's necessarily, especially when it comes to on-air hosts, I don't think there's anything really. They're not trying to be nefarious. They're just as brainwashed as everything. Everyone's fearful. No one wants to lose their job. So, I mean, even like my bosses, the people that fired me for speaking out, I don't think there's some grand conspiracy where they get a call from the Illuminati and they're like, you must fire that host who said blah, blah, blah. It's like, they're afraid of public opinion, because most people are asleep. And if you're saying what you're saying, we're afraid we're going to lose audience. We're afraid that sponsors will pull their advertising. And I think that's what it comes down to. It comes down to like money, you know. Um, it hurts because, you know, I really appreciate my relationships with people, especially in my career with people that I've worked with, and I always feel a special kinship with them. I've always appreciated that someone has trusted me to go on their radio station and try to get ratings that's going to help the sales team make a living and feed their families. And I always had a love-hate relationship with that, because you start to put your self-worth at times with your ratings, and then you can feel bad if the ratings are down for a month, and you can feel bad, and you can feel, your self-esteem can take a hit. And it's an emotional job, when you're on the front lines, when you are the face of something. It was not really glamorous. Yeah, your face is on the side of a bus or on a billboard, and people go, "Oh, this guy thinks he's cool shit, I bet." It's like, no, it's like the minute they put your face on a billboard, the pressure now is like, shit, man, they just spent $500,000 advertising me. If my ratings aren't killer, I'm done. I'm done. So I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I guess my moral of the story is, don't hate on people or think there's something nefarious going on. I think that there's just a lot of fear of someone is trying to protect their ass from the person above them, usually for revenue, But one guy at the very top in my particular company that I was just let go from, you can research it, but I'm not going to directly call anyone out by name, because these are people that I still like. But he's a real sort of guy who grew up, in the classic rock era, which was a rebellious time. Screw the man, being in, you know what I mean? And I really love that about him. I love that, even the kind of the clothing brands that he wore and everything to watch. And it was just, he had a rock, kind of a modern day rock star sort of vibe about him. He's older than I was, but I just love that, this guy's cool shit. And but hook, line, and sinker with the narrative, wasn't even willing to be open at all about me speaking out and representing the idea that hey man, we can at least have interesting dialogue and discourse about the man that's putting all these rules down. Why aren't you badass or rock star enough to have a vaxxer and an anti-vaxxer in on the show for a debate? Why is that not even a thing? Would that not be amazing for ratings? Are you that afraid? Are you that afraid? Do you think so little of your audience that they can't tune in and hear a debate about something, or to have one of their radio hosts? Believe me, every radio host on my last radio station, 95.3 in Vancouver, was all, "Oh, Bonnie Henry, is this the best? Oh my God!" And they'd go, those bloody protesters, and they were all right with the narrative. Those racists in Ottawa. Why can't one host on the radio station be guys, where's the balance? Why are we that afraid of this one person on the radio station saying that maybe, hey guys, maybe they're not racist, So that's really disappointing. And it's like that basically at every radio station. So radio is dead. It is just dead. It's dead. It's and this was said in closed door meetings. We are the radio station for Karens. We are the Karen radio station. We don't want to be but we just are, and that's the way it is. And I was like, what? So it's very broken. The system's broken. And yeah, I mean, okay, I don't know what else to say. It's what you can do is don't be angry at them. It's coming from fear, but I would just do away with them. The people who are awake to what's going on are the intelligent part of the population. We're the smart ones. We're the ones that aren't brainwashed. We're the ones with probably really great moral compass, one of the great values, the people who do their own research and don't just wait for someone to spoon feed them garbage. I mean, what audience do you want to have? Whose attention do you want? I would much rather have the attention of the people that are on my app now than the sheep, I'm not trying to be mean, but like the sheeple that are, listening to the Karen radio station. It's not where I'm at anymore. And I was there for so many years, and I'm grateful for that time because it brought me to where I am. But I don't know if that answers anything of what you're asking me
It
about
does.
media.
I'm gonna just say this because that's what we're gonna do. I made a joke when there was that push of like, we're gonna end up in concentration camps. I'm like, if it's everyone who's standing up, like we would have that concentration camp running real smooth.
Right.
That would be fun if it was all people who are motivated.
Don't say it would be fun. Jesus, Nicole. Okay, I'm cutting you off. I'm cutting out. Stop drinking. Stop drinking.
This is vodka.
This is my water bottle, by the way. It's a 1 gallon. I'm doing a water drinking challenge.
Yeah, I just want to put it. I don't want to end up in any kind of camp situation. Yeah. All I'm saying is, I think it would be an innovative camp. It would attract innovation. There was
some. It ended up being like a meme, but there was some fake. This is the problem with Instagram truther accounts, is that we get hyper like emotional and we're like, oh, we see things and I'm guilty of it too. I think this is when I actually. Oh, no, I didn't. I don't think I reposted this one, but I've been guilty of reposting other things. There was one meme that came out and said, in order to open up airlines again, they're going to put all the unjabbed people at the back of the plane. And of course that would be right. And then of course all the things. Oh yeah, that would be the cool section, man. I want to sit in the back of the plane with all the, and that is one of the cool things about this mask thing. And it's, going to come back this fall. I'm sure of it. As much as I hate it, when you walk around and you see the people without the mask, it's like, oh, thank God. It's like wearing a sign going, dude, I'm cool. I get it. Like, I'm with you. And I've had that happen a few times where I'm at my stepdaughter, who just graduated high school this year. As the kids were all walking out and we're going to wait outside taking pictures, and there's just a dad over there and he's like the only one not wearing a mask, and I'm not wearing a mask. And I just walk right over to him like, what's up? He's like, hey. I'm like, yeah, too hot for a mask, eh? He goes, oh. And then we like hit it off, and you have these surprise encounters with people who are just like, they have such a shared value, and it runs so deep. It's not just about the mask. It's about the world that we're creating for our kids. And you can have a connection with someone like that in 5 minutes and feel like you've known them for 6 months. And I've had that happen to me so many times in the last few. I feel like a kinship with you, even though this is our first time speaking, but there is a certain like, aligned value, and you find that's when they use that term, finding your tribe. That's what it is. That's the experience. When you speak out and you're afraid to, because you're afraid that everyone's going to like ostracize you from society, and we're hardwired for connection. You're afraid to say something, but then when you do, it's like they say your tribe shows up, but they actually literally do. You post even a question lightly on Instagram, your DMs blow up because people are like, oh my God, I've been wanting to, like, I didn't know you were one too. I haven't said anything because I'm afraid, but you said something. So like, hey, and then next thing you know, you've met a new friend, and it's your tribe. It's anyways, here I am again.
No, there's something there. And I think I remember you saying that, like, would you have identified as a people pleaser before? Because you were saying like a lot of your career was based on your likability.
That's how I made my living.
Yeah.
Being a people pleaser. Not healthy.
No.
But
this is what I think this is what's unique about someone like you, and I would have identified as that too. When we're speaking out, it's like painful. There's people who are aggressive and kind of like conflict. They're not as agreeable. Mm-hmm. But there's something to agreeable disruptors that we're seeing rise up right now. And so for other people who identify as like people pleasing, and it's very painful, as you probably know, to step outside of that likability. What advice would you give them?
So that's such a great topic that you just brought up, because just in regular life, people pleasers, it is hard to, you end up really suffering quietly to yourself because you just want to, and for me, I always felt like I would always feel like as if I was running for mayor all the time in my career. Like when I'm out, you're always on, because You meet someone, you shake that one hand, and they're going to remember 10 years, 15 years later, when they're in the car with someone and your voice comes on the radio, you're going to go, oh, I met that guy one time. Yeah, it was like, oh, I was back in 2004, but he was cool shit. He was nice. Or I'm always aware of like someone who caught me in a bad moment. And like, man, and there's people on there. Don't look up my name on Reddit. That guy's a fucking dick. Pardon my French. It's like, yeah, sorry, dude, you caught me on a bad day. Like, but it stays with you forever. And so I am just, and that hasn't happened too many times, Nicole. But it is actually painful. Even if you're not a people pleaser, it's actually your brain. I get back to my nerdy psychology stuff. Your brain registers exclusion as if it's physical pain, like it actually hurts. Like that's why breakups are so hard to get over. We've all gone through awful breakups where like for months you're like, oh, it hurts, and then you think about it 10 years later and it hurts like it just happened again yesterday. These things are really deep. We're hardwired for connection. It's all based on survival. Mark Groves is a great guy to listen to. He's one of the best when it talks about psychology and relationships, and I interviewed him. Follow his podcast, Mark Groves. He's amazing. So it's already really painful to speak out and say something that's going to ostracize you from the group. Then on top of it, if you're a people pleaser, holy shit, it's like so painful. I don't even know what advice I could give. I mean, I think that gently, if you are someone who's like, I want to say something, I would just be, I like the idea of just posing questions. Like, you're not coming out and saying, screw Trudeau, oh my God, and people are going to go, whoa, unfollow if you're afraid of that. Maybe it's just asking a question like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Is this fair? Let's have a poll. Who thinks that? Like just light ways to sort of kind of send a signal to other people that, okay, you think this person might be a little bit awake. And then I think you slowly start making connections, and then you start building your confidence a little bit. Like, okay, it's safe if I start to say things that aren't going to please everybody. I mean, that's just a healthy move in general in life. Because, oh my God, as much pain as I've gone through the last few months, I will say that the on the other side of it is like, what are you going to say about me now, bitches? What you going to say about me now? Because I've been called the crazy person. I've been called all these things, but like there is with real truth, it's like total freedom. And once you're free, now you're connecting with other free people who don't give a shit. And it's like, yeah, I don't give a shit. I actually don't give a shit about what you think about me. I just actually don't. And it's so liberating. And I'm not saying I'm like that 100% every day. I'm being a little bit boisterous right now to prove a point. There are people that I respect and like, oh, I sort of go, oh, I want them to think I'm cool. I'm a human being. But when you get more of that in your life, you get more of that in your step, and you just don't give a shit anymore about what people think about you. It's like, it's ultimate freedom. And it's a good thing.
Yeah. And you're building relationships now where there's actual trust, because if I know that you're not just saying what I want to hear, you now become a more trustworthy person.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah. It feels so good. It's like a couple of people that I met just recently that like, when we talk, it's like, dude, I feel more comfortable talking to you than some of my friends that I've known for 5 years or 10 years. I'm like, just because I just know you're no bullshit. Yeah. Not in an aggressive way. It's just, you're not afraid to say something that might insult me. Like, and I'm not afraid to say like right now I'm in one little group where people are deciding who they want to rank first. Is it Pierre? Is it Roman? And there's people are going back and forth, and like no one's afraid to rock the boat. And a majority of the people in the group, I won't say who, but we're going for like, we got to vote for this person in our ballots. And I'm like, I'm not really sure. Like, and I can freely just go, guys, I like that guy, but this is the reason why I'm kind of leaning towards this guy. I don't know. I'm not afraid of people going, well, you don't agree with us? Like, no, this is the whole point. It's discourse. We're hey, you don't really, all you want to do is hear my honest opinion. We want to riff. And we lost that in the world. We lost that in media. We lost that in our workplaces. We lost it with our families. We've lost it with everyone. Like, what the hell is going on? Are we all so damn sensitive that we can't like disagree and like debate? I mean, if you debate anything now, you're some kind of weird conspiracy theorist, misogynistic, racist. Like, what the hell, man? What has happened? So
Yeah.
I'm happy if that makes me crazy, I'm happy to be the crazy person. But anyway, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Two final questions if you're up for it. These
Yeah.
are my favorite questions right now.
Okay.
The first one, how do you know you're not the crazy one? You're not the brainwashed one? Because I definitely, after I started speaking out, I was like, wait, am I the crazy one? Oh. But yeah, how do you know?
I'll tell you why. Because you never, ever, 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 ever see someone switch sides back to the other team. No one ever starts doing their own research and discovering what the freedom movement is really about, and then say, no, this is crazy, I'm going to go back to the other side. Never. You won't find someone. You only find people who are waking up and coming over to this side. And there's people like that happen. There's thousands of people every single day. Now we need more of a swell, but it's only going one way. To me, that says that's what truth is. Now that could just be the ramblings of a crazy guy, but that's my answer.
I love it. I love it. And what's the biggest lie you once believed?
I just always believed that the people in charge were like taking care of things. We grew up thinking that. Of course, it's always believed that well, if you're in that position with that level of responsibility, of course, there's people keeping you in check. You're keeping each other in check. There's some sort of like value system at the top that I believe that most of my life. And then you wake up and you realize, oh my God, no, it's just one big club. It's so cliche, but yeah, it's one big club of evil shitheads who are just consolidating power into one little thing till eventually, and I'm being sensational here, eventually they'll be controlling the entire world with one button on an app. Like in fantasy land, that's how much power that they want. They want to control everything. And once you realize that, oh my God, I mean, waking up is not pretty. It sucks. You go through a real period of mourning, like I did, like mourning, like a sadness of, oh my God, the world isn't what I thought it was. Oh, I wish I didn't know this. Like, probably 6 months of mourning the world that I thought it was. And I'm a sensitive guy, so it like pained me. You're like, oh my God. And you feel hopeless, like, oh my God. But then you come out the other side and then you start having more empowering conversations in your head, and then you're off to the races. It's all good. But there's a thing you got to work through, when you wake up to that you've been lied. Like, no one likes getting lied to. It's like, what? Even a friend who lies to you. What? You lied? Dude, you lied to me? I thought we were bros. Your spouse lies to you about something? Like, what? It hurts. Now imagine being lied your entire life, where your whole worldview is, shifted or thrown out the door. So yeah, there is a thing that you go through, but I'd say that's the biggest. It's just believing, trusting the system.
The system. I think that we just feel so vulnerable that we can be deceived. Like, even though, yes, it's hurtful, like if somebody we love lies to us, but it's also like can I trust myself?
Mm-hmm.
Can I trust myself to go out into the world and be able to make decisions where I'm not deceived? And I think that's really hard. Like, now I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm believing some lies, and maybe they'll reveal themselves to me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not going to be who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be
yeah, and we got to take it easy on ourselves. Like, yeah, I'm guaranteed there's a few rabbit holes that I'm down right now that are total bullshit. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? You just always have to be willing to be wrong about everything. And I to be honest, I am willing to be wrong about absolutely everything. As soon as you're locked into one thing, I'd say every every couple of years of my life, I've become a different person. You know, I mean, I'm embarrassed about who I was in my mid 20s. I thought, Nicole, I thought I was the hottest shit, you know, making so much fucking money that I'm not making anymore. But at the time, I was single. I just lived downtown. I spent too much money on a fancy car. I was filling all the emptiness. I grew up on welfare as a kid. So like I started making some money and I'm an adult. I'm like, oh man, I got no responsibilities except for this 3, 4 hour job in the morning. People, you know, present their best self to me wherever I go. I don't have to wait in line at restaurants. You know, there was a couple of years there where yeah, I was hot shit. And then you realize, you know, and I wasn't always like that, but there was a zone you're in. And then you kind of realize that, okay, you know, this isn't making me happy. What makes me happy? Being authentic, being real, having real relationships, you know, we all go through maybe that wave. And then, and I'd say that's when I became that person. That's when my career really did like take off. You know, I see that with artists when I used to interview bands, when you get like some Canadian band, they've got like one hit song, they got one song, and you interview them and they come in at the studio like this. It's like they've never had a taste of like coolness before, and they just think, well, I'm kind of a big deal. The whole Ron Burgundy thing. And then you meet someone like I had a chance to meet Janet Jackson one time. And they're like, Janet Jackson. And it was like the total opposite. It was like the humblest, nicest, came over, shook my hand, was like, hi. I mean, we talked for like half a second, but I was like, oh my God, she was so humble and nice. And like, because she doesn't have anything to prove. She's not high in her own supply. She just is. She's comfortable with who she is. She's Janet fucking Jackson. She's
Yeah.
not this little band from Toronto who's got one hit song and they think that they're the shit. So, I mean, now I'm rambling. I forgot what we're even talking about now. But what was the question again?
I know. I'm like, no. It was around like a fear of being like you said. You're open to questioning everything you believe. Yes, because
Right.
that's
Okay.
the place. But I think that's also kind of the hint of how to know if you're on the quote unquote right side of history. If there is
Right.
an
Yeah.
open, a curiosity, like, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My point was that I feel like, sorry, I really got off on a tangent there.
No,
Um, my point that I was trying to make was I feel like every couple of years I've like become a different person. You know, I've learned, I've gone, God, wow. You know, we do that like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to wear those jeans. That's embarrassing. But also in a mental sense, in a spiritual sense, I continually are shedding my skin, to like, I don't even recognize myself from my mid 20s, or even my, you know, early 30s. Now I'm a totally different person. I look back at pictures. I think about the things I did, the things I spent money on. Wow, my priorities were so messed up. We have to be like that with our thoughts too. And this is my point. Sorry, long answer. We have to be like that with the information that we can't be glued to anything. Like we have beliefs, but you got to be willing to like tweak them constantly because there's new information coming out all the time. There's a lot of controlled opposition and believe me, that there are truther accounts there that are completely manufactured and run by the dark side to lure you down a certain way. Like it's advanced. You would think that, oh, they wouldn't bother, but yeah, this is an information war that we're in. Really, it's not bullets, it's information, and that's how they lure people into different corners, and they divide you again and again. And now we've got a society that's divided into like 18 different um, sections, with class and race and religion and this and that and politics, and it's so nutty, but that's how they do it. They invest billions and billions of dollars into that. So you have to be willing to keep your head on a swivel. Like just, you know, I'm not married to any one thing. There's always new information is on my radar. I think if we all do that, we don't have to be afraid. Like we can take it easy on ourselves. If, okay, I got that one wrong. Wow, I really believed that one. It's okay, dude. These guys are masters of psychology. Like they're decades ahead of us. They've had this planned out for decades, what we're going through right now. So don't feel bad. Like you're going to get tricked a few times. It's okay. take it easy. It's going to be okay. You know,
Just have yourself, yeah.
but yeah, just have your 50,000 foot vision going, and you sort of like you have your, but you tweak it along the way. So that's my.
Amazing.
I've
Amazing.
talked so much.
No,
I've
no, no.
talked so
Okay,
much,
sorry,
Nicole.
sorry, sorry. I have to do. A look ahead. This is what we know. So. What's your vision for the future? And again, how can people interact with you and support you?
I want to. I'm very frustrated with the freedom movement. It seems so divided, and I didn't know this at first, but I've just heard from people going. Like I went to a rally one time, and like there was one freedom movement over here and one over there, and they were like battling each other, and I was like, we're not all on the same team. Like I think we're at Jack Pool Plaza in Vancouver, where we had the big Olympic torch. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, oh yeah, well they came in and we moved over here now. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I'm very frustrated by why are we not all on the same team? We're all allowed to have different opinions, of course, but can we all just be on the same team? So I really want to focus on bringing all these little groups together in one place on my app. We can swap, share ideas, create a place that's safe for new people that are waking up to come in and not feel intimidated, not be censored. So yeah, I have some ideas and strategies of how I want to do that. So if you want to come along for the ride, love to have you guys download my app and jump in. Right now it's kind of like free to everyone. I'm trying to figure out how to monetize it because my God, it's so expensive to run an app. So right now there's like if you want certain bits of content, you can get a subscription every month. And so I'm playing around with how exactly I'm going to do that. But so far it's open, it's a free for all. People are posting, loving each other, having a great time. And so that's, I think, did I answer your full question?
Yeah,
Vision for the future?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the hope?
Okay, yeah. And just, yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that's it. I was just breathing.
So you just want to connect. Sorry, I was just seeing like how funny of a comedy movie that would be to have like freedom fighters fighting against each other. Like that's a comedy in the making, but it's happening.
Well, it's funny. The first radio station I ever worked at was a Christian radio station. Now I had applied, and I wasn't I didn't consider myself a Christian person. Now I believe in God, but I'm talking about, I believe in God now, and I'm a spiritual person. But I was like, I don't know, 19, 18 years old, whatever, getting my first radio station, and I had applied at every radio station in the country. No one would hire me. I was awful on the radio. One of my teachers at radio school hired me to work. He was opening up his own Christian radio station. I think that's one of the first ones in Canada, because it's a big format in the States, but not in Canada. And it was called Life 100.3 in Barrie. And now it's all over Southern Ontario. Anyways, he hired me, and I got out there, and we would have to go to churches every weekend. My boss would be spreading the word about this new radio station, because it was a lot of it was listener supported. And I just noticed that like all these different churches were like against each other because they were different denominations. And I was like new to the whole church scene. I didn't go to church growing up. It wasn't my thing. And I'm like, oh my God, what? So the Baptists are mad at the Pentecostal because the Pentecostals speak in tongues. And then all these different, they judge them because they wear jeans to church, and you guys wear your Sunday best shirt and tie. It was so crazy to me, the division, where I'm like, can't you guys all just be like, we love God? Like, because you think, oh, there's, people divide us in different religions. Like there's Muslims, there's Christians, there's all these Jewish, all these different religions. I thought that's where the division ended. But then I realized, oh my God, within being a Christian, there's like all these different denominations, and they're like actually at odds with each other. And I'm like, oh my God. So I found that in the freedom movement, it just was so triggering for me because I'd experienced that. And I'm like, are you shitting me? Like, we can't even all agree on like some basic freedom things. So anyways, my app is all inclusive. The vision is that, hey, the entire country is on this app. All the freedom fighters are all in this app. We're all getting along. We're all learning. We have differences of opinion. That's cool. But if we can all just sort of get on the same team and not be in some kind of victim mindset, we're empowered. We feel great. We're helping each other win in every way possible. I think we're going to need that. I think mindset is going to be a really important game to play over the next few years, because who knows what kind of crazy shit's going to happen. So we can't be wallowing. We need to be winning. And again, I'll just say it one more time. Instead of plugging my app one more time, I want to plug this interview with Corey George that is so great that I interviewed yesterday. I felt really empowered by having him in the studio with me. And so that's my latest episode. I think it's episode 56 of my podcast. It's in the app, it's on Spotify, it's wherever you find it. Kid Carson Show is the name of the podcast. But so yeah, I just want people to be empowered. I want people to be like excited and not isolated and dark and alone, and because it's such an easy place to go.
It is such an easy place, and
yeah.
I'm so happy we got to meet, have this conversation, and I can feel that vision in my heart. I'm so excited for you.
Awesome, thank you. And I also want people to know that like there are a lot of great people speaking out. One of my favorites is Sarah Swain. I'm sure you're familiar with her. Sarah Swain is another, she's in Alberta. She's got her platform. She specializes in politics. That's her bag. There are just a ton of people that are now, I think this is a really great trend that's happening. A lot of these people in the freedom movement are building platforms away from big tech. So it's almost like a running parallel. Like our society is going to, you're either going to be only be allowed to talk about what the government narrative is, and if you follow it, you won't even know the difference, because you're not going to be able to hear, because of censorship, that there's any other point of view. Like you just won't know. You'll go on Instagram and think the world is just rosy, but then there's just going to be this whole other lane of platforms with people like my platform, with Sarah Swain's platform called I think it's called Parliament, where you can go there and not be censored, and there's a whole other conversation happening. So you can find some of the links to some of the other platforms too in my app. I'll be posting them, and we also, a lot of these freedom people, we get on calls like once a month and share ideas, and there are things and ideas being floated around. There is a slight sense of organization and talking about different ways that we can help and spread the word about certain things. And I just want to give some people some hope. I'm sure there's someone watching right now that's feeling super like depleted and isolated and alone, and there's no excuse to be alone anymore. Come into my app, shoot me a DM. Like, there's people who want to connect with you and help you feel empowered. So anyways, that's my ramble.
I love it. And I've been thinking a lot, like, okay, how can I serve? If anybody's feeling alone, start to think like, how can you uniquely serve in this? What is the thing you can do and bring? And it doesn't need to be like you and I have a different skill set. We've been in media, so we have a different skill set. But everyone who feels that call as a freedom fighter can serve and build that community. And that's truly empowering. Yeah. Yeah.
You got it, Nicole. You got
Beautiful. It. Okay, thanks, kid. Have a fantastic day, and we'll talk soon.
Nice to meet you. Cheers.
Nice to meet you. Cheers. See ya.